This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Notorious 5, Part 18. When we left off, we found out that the call is definitely coming from inside the house, or something like that, because what Salima shared with the family certainly suggests that the Queen Mother's baby sister Jira was at the very least a pawn in the Ramirez family's game when she was younger. But if she's actually involved in this plot against the Queen Mother now, she's more than a pawn. She's a bishop or a knight. Miss Bernie got a whole lot off her chest. And then she almost got it caved in because her reason for discussing the family's business with a woman she barely knew was 100% about her secret animosity towards the Queen Mother. And Q and LJ discussed Detective Erickson's magical appearance in Dallas. When Wise arrived at the firm to talk to Q and LJ, he said, "Oh, this is nice. What's with the switch up, boss man?" To that point, Q and LJ hadn't had Wise up in the firm, at the estate, or anywhere that could be tracked. Q said, with Erickson being in town and Woody on his way out of town, I thought it was time that we have you come in so we could have a conversation. A few hours later, Woody arrived in Denver. True was waiting for him at the airport with the rent-a-car, and her job was done at the hotel where Kim and Corey were staying for the church convention, at least until the end of the convention gala. Woody said, "You looking good, little mama." True said, "Don't start that." Woody said, all right. So what we need to do is head up to this cabin and get all checked in. My mother and my sister should be here in a couple of hours. I told them that we would pick them up from the airport. True said, why you can't pick them up? Why I need to go? Woody said, come on, man. We got to make this look believable. True said, okay. And then what? Woody said, well, we're going to go back to the cabin and the food going to start coming. So we're going to get that set up, and we usually do game night the first night because everybody going to start flying in. True said, well, how many people are we expecting? Woody said, oh, like 15, 20 members of the family. You remember our cover story? True said, of course. I'm the one who came up with it. Woody said, you going to be nicer to me when my peoples get here? True said, I'm going to be myself. Woody said, now, I already told you, my sisters, they a trip. Zyla is the oldest sister. She is gonna try to punk you. So True said, I know all about older sisters. Woody said, and you and Zora, y'all got a lot in common. Y'all both the middle sisters. As a matter of fact, you kind of remind me of her. True said, don't go getting all nostalgic. Woody said, give me a kiss right quick so we could practice. True said, don't make me slap you. Meanwhile, in Dallas, Bernie called Angela, asking if she could have a sit-down conversation with her and Q. When Angela called Q at the firm, he and LJ had just wrapped up their meeting with Wise. Q headed home to meet with Angela and Bernie. When Bernie got there, she apologized for how she'd handled things the day before. She said that she felt ambushed and cornered. She admitted to feeling left out when Angela moved to Dallas and quickly became ingratiated in Q's family. She said she never wanted to replace Angela and Stephanie's mother, Miss Cheryl, but she did think that she would have a larger role in their lives. She said that she felt like the Queen Mother was standoffish and secretive, and she just didn't understand why. She made multiple attempts to be friends or at least friendly with the Queen Mother, and the Queen Mother always kept her at arm's length. So when Jira told her about their family being attacked when she was a teenager, and the Queen Mother excommunicating her from the family as a result, it sounded right because of the way that she saw the Queen Mother, based on the way that she saw the Queen Mother show up in other situations. Angela asked, can you understand why a woman whose family home was attacked, riddled with bullets, with her family inside, resulting in her mother and her younger sister being killed, would have reason to be somewhat guarded and protective of her family? Miss Bernie said, yeah, I can. Then Angela asked, were you aware that Anya was a twin and that her twin brother died before their first birthday? Miss Bernie said, no, Bella never told me anything. Then Q said, right, and I'm sure that my Aunt Jira didn't tell you that it was her affiliation with the wrong person that made my brother's death possible. In shock, Miss Burney said, "No, she didn't." Then she said, "Again, I'm really sorry for the things that I said and the way that I was seeing your mom. And I'm not making excuses for the way that I behaved or the things that I said, but I'm hoping that you can at least understand it from my point of view and know that I wasn't trying to bring your family any harm. It wasn't just your mother's secretive nature." Then she looked at Angela and said, "You and Stephanie have been keeping secrets from me too. And that seemed to all start when you got to Dallas. And it seems to coincide with when you met Bella. Again, I'm not blaming her, but there was clearly a lot going on behind the scenes. And I was being left out. I was left to my own devices, Angela. You left me floundering for purchase, trying to figure it all out, and nothing was making sense." Angela looked at Q. Then she looked at Miss Burney and said, "You're right. And I'm sorry. You've been like an aunt to me. At times, like a mother. And I have to take some responsibility as well. Because I knew that you thought I was keeping secrets that weren't my own. Had I realized that it would result in tension between you and Medea, I would have, well, I really don't know what I would have done because you were asking questions that I just couldn't and still can't answer. Let's just say there was a lot that my mother didn't tell you about my father, about their marriage, their separation, and about our family. Some of which she just didn't know, but some of it she did. And like her, I'm not at liberty to share it with you. Not because I'm ashamed of it, but because it's not anybody else's business. And because it's not in your best interest or anyone else's to know it." And Miss Burney said, "Well, had you told me that, things would have been different. I don't feel like you have to tell me your business, Angela. But I also don't think that it's fair for you to expect for me or anybody else to blindly follow you from North Carolina to Denver to Dallas with very little information, especially when I was a rider through that situation with your sister Jessica. I've never told a soul about anything that happened in that situation because I was clued in. But you know what? When I saw that young lady's picture, I realized something. I'd seen her around the hospital when you were hospitalized in Denver, and she engaged me in conversation. And because I didn't have all of the details about what was going on, I had a conversation with her, a conversation that I thought was innocent. I have no way to know how she used that information to hurt you. But because I wasn't clued in, I had no idea that simply expressing my joy over the fact that you were being released from the hospital was information that she could use." Angela, shocked, looked over at Q. And in that moment together, they both realized that Miss Burney may not have had any ulterior motives in talking with Jira. So then Q asked, "Miss Burney, tell me everything that you told my aunt and everything she told you." Miss Burney recounted her discussion with Aunt Jira that truly only included information about herself, Veronica, Donovan, and the kids. And when Q asked if she told Aunt Jira that Donovan owned a construction company, Miss Burney said yes. And when Q asked if she made mention of the fact that Pops Andy helped him out from time to time at that construction company, Miss Burney said yes. And the connection was made. When the meeting was over, Miss Burney asked if Angela planned to replace her at Vibrantly You, and Angela said, "Honestly, Miss Burney, I'm going to have to think about it." When Miss Burney left, Q told Angela, "Love, this is your business. I wouldn't dare tell you how to run it. But I think that Miss Burney's desire to be more than just an employee and have access to information that we're not going to share with her creates a conflict of interest that we may not be able to overcome. I think you should discuss this with your Uncle Manny. One of the reasons why his legitimate businesses fare so well is because he only employs people who are a part of the family and people who are well trained by the organization. They're trustworthy. They're not just skilled and savvy in their areas of expertise, but they know how to avoid getting tangled up in situations like the ones that Miss Bernie keeps getting herself tangled up in. When Q headed back to the firm and gave LJ the update, they both concluded that since the Ramirez family couldn't get a hold of the Queen Mother when she was hiding out in Trinidad, they decided to send India to Texas, to Donovan's construction firm. Their goal was to have her get close to Pop's Andy, and eventually the Queen Mother would return, and they could send men in to get at her. When Q confirmed that all of the businesses were owned by holding companies, protecting the identities of the family, and that their only hiccup was having Anya listed as the business manager at Bedtime, the two men realized that the business standards around architecture required that Donovan's name be on all of the architecture for which he was the designer. So all they had to do was search his name, and then they could connect him with the construction company. Meanwhile, in Denver, Pastor Corey is becoming increasingly more annoyed with Pastor Kim. His job is done. He helped with getting the convention together, made sure that everything he was involved in was lined up, participated in the welcome dinner, and was an active participant in the meet and greet. But every time he turns around, there Kim is. His cousin, Pastor Tanya, has noticed too. So Thursday evening, after a day full of conferences and speakers and small group sessions, she pulls her cousin to the side and says, "Is it just me, or do you have a shadow?" Corey said, "I thought it was just me. You peeped that too?" Tanya said, "Yes, I did. What's going on?" Corey said, "Come with me to my room so we can discuss it." In Corey's room, he told Pastor Tanya, "It's crazy because Stephanie was going on and on about my friendship with Kim and us being too close, and I was reassuring her that it was nothing like that. We were colleagues, we were cool, and we were working on the convention stuff. But since I've gotten here, she's been all up in my face. At first, I thought she was just friendly, but then I noticed she wasn't talking that closely with anybody else. It seems like she was just making excuses to come and talk to me, asking me self-explanatory questions and involving me in decisions that are outside of my purview." Tanya said, "Maybe she got a little crush. You want me to talk to her?" Corey said, "No, I don't want to embarrass her. I'm going to wait and see how things go, and if it becomes necessary, I'm going to get her together." Tanya said, "A little piece of advice. When your wife is concerned about another woman's interest in you, don't brush her off. We know these things. And even if you think that your wife is overreacting, telling her that is a bad idea. Her feelings and her comfort should be first. And that doesn't mean that you don't work with other women or have conversations with female pastors or collaborate on projects, but you make sure that the line is clear. And don't be afraid to say, 'My wife isn't comfortable.'" Corey said, "That's not embarrassing for y'all when men put it off on y'all instead of taking accountability for it themselves?" Pastor Tanya said, "No, it's not uncomfortable. If anything, it's reassuring. As long as you don't say it like your wife is being overbearing or your wife is being silly, you say it with confidence, like you standing on business behind your wife. Because if she has to do it, everybody gonna get it." Corey said, "You know my wife?" Tanya said, "Oh no, I'm a wife. I don't play by my husband, and I'm a pastor."